Hey everybody, welcome to the next video. In this one, we are going to be diving into the control panel and just kind of talking generally about how you can use the buttons on the control panel to interact with the canvas and otherwise do some project level actions. So on this page, when I talk about the control panel, I am talking about this white toolbar over here. And at the very, very top, you can see there's a paintbrush and it says design. This is your default mode. So if you change this, you can toggle this to shape, which just shows kind of circles with the plant name. And if you change this to photo, it will give you kind of that preview image of the plant in the real world. So a real photo of the plant or plants in your garden. By default, the mode is design, which are these like botanical illustrations, but that's something that you should know if you want to see kind of how the plants will look side by side next to each other. This mode will help you do that. Over here, next we have undo and redo. So if I, delete a plant and then I decide that I didn't want to do that, I can hit undo. This also works with your, Control or Command Z on your keyboard. And same for redo. It's that Control or Command Y. Underneath that is zoom. So when you're interacting with the canvas, there are a couple ways that you can zoom in or out. If you're on a mobile device, you can kind of pinch to zoom in or out the way that you would expect. If you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can use that to scroll in. If you scroll in, you'll zoom in. And if you scroll out, you'll zoom out. And then the last way that you can zoom on the canvas is by hitting this zoom button. Hitting reset will take you back to a view where the entire garden project is within your viewport. But you can also, hit this, magnifying glass with the minus sign to zoom out. Hit the magnifying glass with the plus sign to zoom in, and then you can also, click and drag this bar if you want. And you can see that as I'm editing the zoom level, the grid indicator is changing. So you always have a reference for how big a certain space is. So that is how you zoom in or out based on the tools in the canvas. Something else worth noting, there's this button here that is the fit to view button. And that's, if you ever get lost and you're zoomed way out or you're zoomed way in, you can either hit, Control or Command Enter, or you can hit this button to reset the zoom to fit your screen, your viewport. So that is the zoom. This next button is the pan or move around the canvas button. Most of the time, by default, if you just click and drag, you will be moving around the canvas. But there are certain times where your cursor is being used for other things. Like, for example, if you're in the middle of creating a polygon or some other type of shape and you want to kind of pause and move over. So let's say I'm zoomed in and I want to move over, zoom out a little bit. Then I can deactivate pan, go back to my shape editing. Maybe I want to pan around some more. Maybe I want to zoom out a little bit and continue panning. And then I want to go back to editing my shape. Great. So that's one. Or another use case where panning around the canvas is really helpful is during stamp mode. So let's say I want to add, this plant, and I want to add, I'm zoomed in here, and I want to add one here, but then I want to pan over to add it to the other side, but I don't want to exit stamp mode. This just pauses whatever you're doing and turns your cursor into a way to pan around the canvas. So those are two use cases there of how the pan tool is helpful. I'm sure it's useful in other contexts as well. We talked already about how to add shapes. So these are your basic shapes that you get out of the box. We talked about the freeform polygon and lines. Adding a plant will just open this catalog tab. So let's say I'm over here in settings. If I hit add plant, it's just going to open that browse tab that we talked about already. So let's do that. If I need a way to add a label, there are a couple ways to do that, but here's one where you can just create one on the fly. It'll add one to your canvas, probably in the upper section of where it is, and then you can tweak it from here to add the text. We can go into that at a later time. Let's see, add image, we've kind of talked about before a little bit. We'll go into more details on that one later, but you can add background images through this settings sidebar tab, or from this plus menu, you'll be able to hit add image. You can add the image from there. Same with add map, it'll probably just toggle on that map layer, which we'll talk about at a later date. Delete, this is kind of like your quick way to wipe the board clean of certain elements. So all plants, all shapes that are classified as garden beds. Start over will delete everything on your board. So you'll have to redraw your project space to begin with. You will not be able to get it back if you do that. So use with caution. And each of these should come with a confirm, so that you are abundantly clear on what you're doing. The brush tool and the eraser tool we're going to get to in the later video. This is just to kind of go over these quick buttons in the control panel that are useful for as you go through your mini operations in building your garden. So this grid also comes with a keyboard shortcut, which is that Control or Command G to toggle it on or off. And that's just kind of helpful for you to know, roughly, how far apart things are spaced and things like that. So that's the grid. And then this ellipsis menu has some of those like extra operations like save a copy. So if I am happy with this, but I'm, considering, a couple of different ways to plan this front row of the garden, I can always fork it or save a copy of it so I can test, front row version 1 versus front row version 2. Share a link. If you want somebody to be able to see this garden and interact with the garden without being able to edit it, you can click that and it'll copy that to your keyboard, and then you can share it with somebody and they kind of get this view where they get the plant information and they get to see the dimensions and things. They can zoom in or out as they want, but they will not be able to move things around. So that's just something that's another option from that ellipsis menu. And then further down, let me move this little video thing. Take a screenshot. We're going to cover in the export section, but if you have a part of your design that you want to make sure you zoom in on and have extra details on, like let's say I want to screenshot just this part with this half circle, that way this is added to my export images that I can use when I'm building up that document that is eventually turned into a PDF that I can download as far as my garden export plan. See in 3D and Review Garden are two new, relatively experimental features. See in 3D will allow you to request a 3D rendering of your garden. So you can request multiple if you wish. You can select specific areas that you want to see in that 3D rendering. You don't have to. If you don't select any areas, then a 3D rendering will be created of your entire garden, and you'll get that picture within 24 hours. Those are $5 each, just because it's an external service that costs money. Review Garden is something that will take all of your project filters and your plants and do kind of like a compatibility check to make sure that you're not growing something that's outside the bounds of what would work. So I've set a bunch of filters on my garden. If I was to add a plant that was like full sun, dry soil, it would come back flagged. Well, we can do this here. Let's see what it comes back with now. It would come back flagged as incompatible with what I had previously set as my garden filters. It will also check plants' compatibility to each other. So if you don't have any project level filters set and you're just kind of adding what's on the fly, it'll say, okay, I've noticed that you've added some part shade and some, full sun. Yeah, here we go. 2 to 4 inches tall. It will overwhelm the low 4 to 6 inches Appalachian strawberry along the sidewalk edge. So this is just, a warning for you. None of these are bad flags. They're just warnings. So the overall, gist of it is, it seems like bone set is a little tall compared to the rest of the plants that I've added, which makes sense because if you look at this plan, these are all very small and I have the bone set in front of that. So that came back flagged. let's see, finally, we have some visibility controls down here that we probably really don't need to get into, but they just, are about quickly showing and hiding different elements on your canvas that can also be done from your layers tab if you really need to. So that is a crash course in all of the buttons on the control panel. We will be digging into some of them, like the brush tool, eraser tool, and maps tool a little bit later.